of Pins and Needles. My name is Zoe. You can find me on Ravelry as BFG and on Instagram as Pins and Needles UK. Welcome back if you've been here before, and a special hello to any new viewers today. Thank you for finding a bit of time to spend with me. I also wanted to say thank you to all of those who have subscribed. I'm up to 68 subscribers the last time I checked, which is fab. So thank you for that. If you like my videos, give me a thumbs up or click the subscribe button in the top right hand corner of the screen so you don't miss an episode, and you'll get notified when a new video goes up. I will put links up on the screen to patterns and designers and yarn and things as I go. And I'll also include lots of notes in the drop down box, so if you want to double check any of the information, have a look in there. I'm impressed I actually managed to get round to recording this vlog today. It's been an interesting day. I was supposed to have a lazy morning, get my children out of the door to various clubs, and I'm usually recording by about 9:30 in the morning, and it is now 3:05. We had a surprise visit from the tree surgeon this morning, so I had men swinging from trees in harnesses wielding chainsaws, and there was a huge wood chipper taking up the whole of my front drive, so it was way too noisy for any recording. And then my eldest son threw up spectacularly all over the floor, so then I was scrubbing vomit out of carpets. I finally got everything set up to find that Jocelyn had flattened the computer battery, so I charged it, and then my laptop decided to start updating Windows. It took forever. So my apologies if you were hoping to get this video a little sooner, but the gods have been against me today. Anyway, I've made it. Here I am. It's been 2 weeks since the last vlog. Today is Saturday the 18th of June. Did I say that already? I don't know. And yes, I'm back. I'm going to jump straight into my pins, my sewing section. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I am wearing my finished Bettine dress. I'm going to stand up to show you, and hopefully you'll be able to see me. There's the bodice. It's an all-in-one kimono sleeve bodice. It's got an elasticated waist. Can you see the bodice just drapes over the top, and then inseam pockets. And I am absolutely thrilled with this dress. That's not my best side, but I thought I'd show you. Getting a bit closer, you can see the nice top stitching on the neck there. Yes, so this is the Bettine dress by Tilly and the Buttons. There we are, look. And last week I showed you, not last week, last episode, I showed you my cotton toile that I've made. And I did do quite a few alterations to the pattern. I sewed a size 7 in the end for the top and the bottom, and I added quite a bit of length to the bodice and to the skirt, about 4 inches I think in both. I'm 6'1", so I always need extra length. And the sewing the toile gave me a false sense of confidence because that went really well. And then this beautiful fabric, I bought this from Butterfly Fabric in Cardiff, which is my local fabric store. But this is Rayon. I have never sewn with Rayon before. It feels lovely, really. It's a nice medium weight woven fabric, nice drape, but a lot more slippery than I was expecting. So when I cut my pieces out for the final version, I had a lot of trouble, and I've got a rotary cutter which I like to use, but my cutting board isn't large enough for dress pieces, so I had to resort to scissors, and everything was slipping and sliding around. So I ended up doing the best that I could, and then as I was sewing it together, I realised quite how wonky my cutting out was. So there was a bit of trimming as I went, but fortunately any mistakes in cutting out were well within the 5/8 seam allowance, so I managed to get away. there is the odd mistake in it. You probably can't see. I just caught the fabric a little here, so I've got a bit of a tuck by there. And again, I was having trouble with the neckline by here, and it's just not quite sitting nicely. But overall, I'm thrilled. It's my first adult dress. I managed to wrestle my overlocker into submission. We came to an understanding. My overlocking is not fantastic, but at least I managed it. I'll show you. Can you see? Look, I overlocked. Very excited. So yes, I would give this 10 out of 10 for the pattern. Super clear pattern. If you were a little more skilled, it would be quite quick and easy to do, and I'll definitely make some more. I know that on Tilly and the Buttons website, she has some hacks that you could do, and also a suggestion on how to make the same dress, but in a jersey fabric, which would be super comfy. So I did it. I'm really pleased with this. Next up, I showed you last time this pattern. This is New Look K6483, and it's just a nice selection of summer tops, and I wanted to make this red one here, which you can't see terribly well. Maybe you can see it better on the line drawings. No. Anyway, it's a fairly basic sleeveless summer top, and I wanted to make it in my toucan fabric. Do you remember this I showed you? It's got toucans on it. But I decided I would again make a wearable toile this time. I hear that the big 4 pattern companies often come up very large, so I didn't want to make this in my nice fabric and not be able to wear it or have to recut it. And also, if I'm honest, the toucan fabric is also rayon, same as my dress, and I just fancied a break from rayon. So I dug through my stash and found some cotton. Now, my great aunt, I think I mentioned it in the very first episode, passed away not so long ago, and I inherited lots of bits and pieces from her, various crafty bits and yarns and buttons, sewing things, and actually some clothes as well. She obviously had a great passion for clothing, and she had some wonderful pieces of a really high quality. And whilst a lot of the styles weren't to my taste, there was a lot of gorgeous fabric in there. She wore a lot of skirts, and they were quite full, big box pleats and things like that. There was a lot of fabric in those things. So, what have I done with it? Somewhere, excuse me a moment, I was sitting on it. So I decided to take one of these skirts, unpick it, and reuse the fabric to make that top. So I've got as far as cutting it out. That's all I've managed, I'm afraid. And now it's creased because I was sitting on it. But this is the front piece. This is the fabric. So it's a lovely lightweight navy cotton with a sort of a slightly abstract flowery print on it. I just managed to eke out a front and a back piece. I would ideally have lengthened it, but I just didn't have the fabric. So I've got a front and a back, and I think it's going to make a really useful summer top. I've never tackled bust darts, and this pattern has bust darts. So yesterday, you see, I chalked them in and marked with tailor's tacks all the various points. This pattern does have a facing, and unfortunately I didn't have enough even to cut the facings out. So I dived back into my box of fabric and I found an old pillowcase. Now, ideally, I would have gone for dark blue for facings, but you can only use what you've got. So I've got some pale blue sheeting. It does match the pale blue in some of the flowers, but not my first choice, but as I said, a wearable toile. So those pieces are all cut out, ready to go. And according to the pattern, which I've now lost, I'm not doing terribly well today. Anyway, according to the pattern, this sews up in 1 hour. Challenge accepted. That's what I say. So yesterday I cut out all my pieces, And today, depending on who else turns up to hem down trees or indeed throw up on the rug, I will have a go at sewing that later. I thought I'd time myself and see actually if it takes an hour. So I will let you know, and hopefully by next week I will have another new glamorous outfit to podcast in. The other interesting thing about this project is it's my little contribution to the refashioning theme trend that's going on. Similar to Me Made May, there is a challenge run by the Makery, and the people at the Makery challenge various podcasters, a different set every year, to have a go at a refashioning challenge. Now, this year, the bloggers taking part are, excuse my little list down here, A Stitching Odyssey, Megan Nielsen, Colette, Sozo, What Do You Know, lots of others as well. And the challenge is that they are given an old pair of jeans and they have to refashion it into something completely different. They can make it into any garment that they like, but they must start with an old pair of jeans. And it's, partly a challenge, make, do and mend, using up what you've got, all these really good, encouraging, eco-friendly ideas. So for me, I thought I'd have a go at turning a skirt into a top, pick up some new skills. The pattern came with a sewing magazine I bought, so really, apart from buying some matching thread, it's going to be a free new top for me. So I'm quite keen to have a go. And there's a hashtag that you can search for on Instagram if you're interested in seeing what these other podcasters are making. I'll pop it up on the screen, and I think it is hashtag refashioners. So have a search on that, see if you can find some inspiration. I have to admit, since I've been sewing, I've been eyeing up all sorts of old bed sheets and duvet covers, thinking, oh yes, when you're a bit more worn out, I'll make a lovely pair of pyjamas out of you. So, so yes, so that's my challenge for that top: refashion an old skirt into a top, and free clothes. Happy days. The quick drink. The other bit of sewing I wanted to talk to you about is connected to another blog that I follow called Sew Over It. There's two shops in London, one in Clapham and one in Islington, I think, owned by a lady called Lisa Comfort, and her business is Sew Over It. And as well as the shops, they have online shops, and she does a wonderful podcast on YouTube. I highly recommend that. I really enjoy watching her. She does fabric hauls, pattern reviews, makes lots of things every month, and I'm a big fan of hers. And I saw that she had released a new online class. It's called, again, I need to get my show notes, The Ultimate Guide to Sewing and Fitting Trousers. Now, things for my bottom half are sadly lacking in my wardrobe. I really need skirts, shorts, casual trousers, things like that. That's a big part of what I need to be sewing at the moment. So I was really excited to see this online class that she released. And as well as the course itself, it includes 2 PDF pattern downloads, one casual pair of trousers called the Carrie trousers, and her ultimate trousers, which are much more fitted, and they've been out for quite some time. So you get 2 patterns and the course, and it looks absolutely fantastic. I did find it on my iPad, so I can show you. Online classes. Sorry, I'm not terribly organised today, as I said. There we are. It's that one in the middle. So as you can see, one lovely casual drapey pair and one much more fitted, tapered thing. Now, the online class is £45, which I think is brilliant value for money. You get 2 PDF patterns, and the list, it shows you the the list of the tutorials that you get, and as you can see, the list is very long indeed. So I think that's really good value for money. However, I don't have £45, so I'd love to have done that, but I actually had another pattern already that I think will get me a fantastic pair of casual trousers. So this is Simplicity 1887, and it's one of those fabulous ones where you get a whole different selection of them. So there's some lovely trousers. I've seen lots of ladies wearing these, and I can never find any that are long enough for me. It's an elasticated back waist, a nice flat panel at the front, and it's got similar pockets to this dress, so, you know, sort of cutaway pockets. The line drawings on this are a bit easier to see. There you are, look. And there's a skirt and some shorts and trousers that you can have with an elasticated cuff or without. So I'm going to do the trousers with no bow, because I don't like bows, and open cuffs. So that is something I'm going to be making, and I treated myself to some new fabric. It's more rayon. I think I just need to admit that I need to get better at sewing rayon. Maybe better quality interfacing, and maybe using my walking foot on my sewing machine would be a good idea. So I took a punt and I ordered some rayon fabric off eBay. It came super fast, and it was, I bought the thing down, it's from the Little World of Fabric, which is based in Birmingham, and it was £3.75 a metre with free shipping. So here it is. It's a lovely turquoisey green colour. I really like the print on this, and I ordered 3 metres. Now, I've had a look, I searched the pattern number on Instagram and found that lots of people have made all of the versions of this pattern, but they all seem to say it comes up enormous. Most people seem to have gone down 3 sizes. So if I look at the back of the pattern, it gives you body measurements and finished garment measurements. And if I compare the body measurements to the finished garment measurements for what I would need to make, my hips, the finished item would have 5 inches of positive ease around the hips. 5 inches! I want casual trousers. I don't want MC Hammer harem pants with the crotch around my knees. So I'm going to, when I come to making this, I think I might make a toile in cotton just to get an idea of the width. And another tip that I've come across seems to be actually get the pattern pieces out and measure the pattern pieces, the front and the back, add them together and see how much you've got. You can get away with taking a larger seam allowance to make something smaller, but I would imagine you won't be able to go down 2 sizes just in a seam allowance. It's going to get complicated. So I'll make a wearable toile of that, and then I will make up a fantabulous pair of trousers in some more rayon. So I think that will keep me out of trouble. Hopefully I can sew the top tonight, because you know it's only going to take me an hour, and then I can get started on the trousers next week. I did have one other thing I wanted to make. Again, I'm going to have to show you on my iPad. I mentioned before about Seamwork, which is an online subscription sewing magazine. It's written and published by the team at Colette, if you've come across them. And once a month you get a new subscription, a new issue. There's maybe 10 articles on there about various things, and there's always some new patterns, and you're allowed to pick 2 patterns a month, and they're all designed to be quick and easy and fairly simple. And I want to make myself some Weston shorts. Now these, I like the look of these. They're a high-waisted button-up short. I like a decent waist. I don't like things hanging around my hips. It's got 2 buttons, and I've got some denim fabric that I'm not afraid to use. So again, I'll make myself a wearable toile of these. I'll definitely add some length to the bottom of the legs as well. and apparently they only take 2 hours. So, you know, I could make a whole new wardrobe by the next time you see me, because obviously 2 hours is plenty. The other thing I wanted to mention was the Great British Sewing Bee. I don't know if you've been watching that. It's Monday nights, 9 p.m. on BBC Two for anyone in the UK. You can catch it on iPlayer as well. And I'm watching that religiously. And last Monday, I finished my Bettine dress Friday before last. So I managed to be wearing a dress I'd made whilst watching the Great British Sewing Bee, which pleased me hugely. I thought that was quite an achievement. So they've had a couple of great episodes. Unfortunately, the guy I was rooting for, Josh, he's a Cardiff boy and I'm in South Wales. Unfortunately, he's gone. He did ever so well, but he wasn't quite up to scratch with the others. So I'm still watching along, and I reckon if I had to put money on it, I don't know if I could choose between the winner being Charlotte or Joyce. They're both fantastic, and Charlotte recently won Garment of the Week for a beautiful cotton lawn kimono that she made, and Joyce won Garment of the Week for a fantastic fitted peplum dress in African print wax cotton. So I think those two are the ones to watch. There's the Great British Sewing Group on Ravelry if you're interested. There are a couple of spoiler threads in there, so if you haven't seen the latest episode, avoid that thread. But Charlotte does pop into that thread every now and then. She hasn't released any secrets, so we'll all have to wait and see for the final. But I've been enjoying that. And it's certainly inspiring to see the challenges they make and how hard they push themselves. And it gives me a bit of a nudge to keep going with that as well. I think on to needles, my knitting section. And I've got some finished objects to show you. I'm absolutely thrilled. First of all, my Zigzagular socks are finished. Can you see the lovely cable twists on there? Now, proof, look, there's the other one. I did knit two. This is the Zigzagular sock pattern by Susie White. I knit these on 2.25mm needles, and it's knitted in Lorna's Laces Shepherd Sock Multi, Bittersweet, which is shade 630. I used a fish lips kiss heel. It doesn't sit terribly well on my sock blockers. And I knit these for the Grocery Girls Fancy Feet Knit Along, and you had to pick a new technique. So the fish lips kiss heel was a new technique to me, and also I did cabling without a cable needle for the front twist of the cable. I couldn't manage it for the back. Anyway, I finished those. I was tickled pink with those, and now that I've shown you, I can start wearing them, because it's South Wales and it's been grey and rainy and windy and horrible, so actually a new pair of woolly socks is just perfect. And I have also finished, and I feel I need a medal for this, my dad's, there's the second one, boring Christmas socks. Now, the last time we spoke, I was here. I knit these top down, so I'd got to here, and I decided I'd had enough of these. They just needed to be finished. So I'm nat like the wind, got all the way down. They've got contrast toes. And again, 2.25mm needles. The yarn I bought from Lidl, Zettle Valbella. It doesn't have a shade number or anything on the label. It's quite a thin sock yarn. It washes and wears fantastically well, but it did mean a lot of knitting because my father has enormous feet. So I am chuffed as nuts to get these off my needles. And again, now I've shown them to you, I can tuck these away for Christmas because he likes Christmas socks. So there we are, that's finished. And that's the last of that brown yarn as well, and the last of the contrasty brown multi at the bottom. So I've really enjoyed going onto my stash database in Ravelry and changing the little drop down box to all used up. Poof, gone off my stash page. That was really good fun. Obviously that left me with no socks on the needles, which is an aberration. So I cast on some more Now, as I mentioned, the Grocery Girls Fancy Feet knit along was all about new techniques, and it kind of inspired me to have another go at a technique. Sock knitting is my go-to brainless thing if I don't want to think about it, which is why I always knit top down, heel flap and gusset socks, because I don't need to engage my brain. My fingers just flow and I can go for it. But for several years I have had this wonderful book, which is Socks Toe Up by Socks from the Toes Up by Wendy D. Johnson. Now there are some wonderful patterns in here, but more to the point, if I give you a sneak peek, she has a wonderful section, instruction at the beginning, sock knitting techniques, how to measure your feet, and she has a whole section on, I must learn where my camera is, creating toes. So lovely clear pictures, and she covers figure of 8 toe, Turkish cast on, and Judy's magic cast on. Cover my face. And I never really mastered this technique, but there was a pattern in here that I've been wanting to knit since I've had the book, and I've had the perfect yarn for it, and it's the serpentine socks. There we are, look. These are a sport weight sock, and years and years ago, at one of the very first knitting shows I went to, I won a door prize. I think everyone that came in got a raffle ticket, and at the end they drew a raffle and I won a skein of sock yarn, for which I can't find the label. I'll put the details in the box and up on the screen. I know it's the Unique Sheep Footprints yarn in Calahadras, which I think is a Lord of the Rings reference, correct me if I'm wrong, and it's a beautiful cream. I think the camera's blowing that out a bit, maybe you can see it better on the sock. There we are. It's a beautiful cream with greys and beigey browny bits on it, sort of a speckle effect. And I cast this on just a couple of days ago, and look how much I've done. These are for me. I've got quite big feet, but I did a fabulous Turkish cast, Judy's magic cast on. Look, perfect. And there's the pattern. It's a cable and lace. It's a bit hard to see. There we are, look, much better. And I've also decided to use the Fish Lips Kiss heel as well. So again, I've been using my cardboard foot cutout to poke it into there. And while I was cheering up my poor old boy who was sick this morning, I managed to knit the heel as well. So I'm making fantastic progress on these. And the wool is 100% wool. There is no nylon content in here. It's pure merino. So I think these are going to be bed socks, house socks, slipper socks. I don't want to wear holes in them. So that's my new sock project. I'm thoroughly enjoying this. It's one of those ones you can't quite put down. It's so squishy and lovely. I did divide my yarn into 2 balls. That's why I've got such a little one here. But I seem to have done it really badly. The other ball is 70 grams because I was starting to panic that I'd got that far and had that much yarn left, and it would have to be quite a short sock. But I need to wind 20 grams off the other ball, and then I can get a decent length sock out of this. And I can always, put a lifeline in at the end of a repeat, so if I do have to rip out, at least the stitches are caught. For the toe up, Judy's Magic Cast On, it does recommend starting with 2 cable needles. I went for 1 2.75mm knit pros, but I really don't enjoy Magic Loop very much, so I knit the toe on it, and then I put it back on double pointed needles. These are my absolute favourite technique. I do struggle with ladders. I don't know, can you see if I pull it apart, you can just see the line down the centre. My friend Sarah can knit on DPNs with no laddering whatsoever. I can't manage it, but I'd still rather use these. So the front pattern is all on 1 needle, so there's no risk of any gaps in the pattern. And this bit is basically going to be underneath my foot or at the back of my leg when nobody will see it. So I'm knitting away happily on those. So that's my new sock project. This comes with me. I'll probably take it to work. Shh, don't tell Dave. And get a bit more done tomorrow. So that was quite good fun. And if you remember last episode, I talked about knitting some colourwork mittens for my mum. She lost the last pair I made her, which I was very pleased about because it meant I got to make more. So I decided I would knit her a pair of Perianth mittens, which is a paid-for pattern on Ravelry by Barbara, what's your surname, Barbara? Barbara Gregory. And I showed you the yarn I was planning on using the last time. And if you follow me on Instagram, I did post a picture of my progress, and I had some lovely speckledy multicoloured pink yarn and a grey for the contrast colour. And I loved them together, but unfortunately when I started knitting the mitten, it just didn't work out. There were flecks of a greeny grey in the pink yarn that didn't have enough contrast with the grey, so I knit the cuff and about the first 16 rows of the mittens, and it was clear it just wasn't going to work, and there was no way I was going to keep going with mittens that you'd sort of have to squint at to see the pattern. So I ripped it out, which was a bit of a shame, but that's okay. I'm keeping my mittens in my Mrs. Brown's Andy bag, and I found two new colours. So I will attach with my double pointed needles. I have got some more Zettle Valbella, that's the cream, it doesn't have a shade number, and this is a beautiful dusty pink colour, and it is West Yorkshire Spinners Signature 4-ply, a nice British yarn this, and it's shade 0098, or at least I think it is. There's 3 numbers on the back by the barcode, and it doesn't say what's what, so I think that's it. The cream is wool and nylon, and the pink, it says it is 75% wool, 25% nylon, but 35% of the wool content of this one is BFL, which is a lovely sturdy yarn. So I was much happier with these. We have a fiddle and I can, oh, it's escaped. I can show you how far I've got. So, there we are. Can you see the beginning of the flowers just here? That's the front. Well, I mean, it's the same. You don't have a left and a right-handed mitten, so the pattern comes out the same on both sides, but a much nicer, clearer contrast. I really think it's going to be much better. And can you see? I've got a teeny weeny Russian doll stitch marker. These came in a set, and again, it's atomic knitting, so I'm pleased with those. But again, having ripped out my first attempt, I struggled a bit with this. The pattern is 3 sizes, and you just vary the size by changing the needles. And for the cuff, it's a 54 stitch cuff, and it suggested, for the size I wanted, which is the largest, a 2.25mm needle, which is very small. I cast it on and I thought, I'm not happy about that. So I ripped it out. I'd done the whole of the cuff and I ripped it out. So it was the second time I'd ripped out these mittens. And then I cast on with a 2.5 and decided I'd quite like 1x1 twisted rip, because I think that looks much smarter. I think the stitches pop a bit better. And I cast that on and I knit all of the cuff, and I thought, that's still a bit small as well. So I had a word with my friend Jenny from Owl About Yarn. Hi Jenny. And she agreed, she thought it was probably too small. So 2.75, 2.75 for the cuff, and I went back to normal 1x1, and then the body of the mitten is knitted on 3mm needles. So I'm finally properly going on these. They're for my mum, and I'll probably give them to her for her birthday in October, so I've got plenty of time for that. And I'm entering these in the Grocery Girls Christmas in July knit along. So it's an opportunity to use some Christmas themed yarn that you've got hanging around, because it's a shame to only use those at one time of year. Or you can make a start on Christmas projects, anything like that. The knit along is running from June the 15th, so it's already started, up until July the 31st. There's a thread in their group, so come along and join us. And like I said, mrsbrownsbags.etsy.com for one of those. I did also have another plan, because I've got a sock, I've got my mittens, and that didn't seem like quite enough projects to me. I've been knitting a lot with 4-ply yarn recently, which I love, and I do have a lot of it, but I did fancy using up some stash and making a big thing, making a jumper or a, I don't know, a cardigan, burn through some more of my stash, and just have something a bit more substantial on the go. So, again, if you saw on Instagram, I've had this book, Yokes by Kate Davis, for quite some time now. You may or may not have heard of katedavisdesigns.com. If you go and have a look, lots of patterns on Ravelry. And she's released a couple of books, Yokes, which I've got, Colours of Shetland, which I also have, and very recently a book on haps, the traditional Shetland shawls. And Kate Davis is a fascinating lady. She lives in Scotland on the West Highland Way, and she has a nice husband called Tom who takes her pictures, and a devastatingly handsome black Labrador called Bruce, who I love. And as well as being a knitwear designer, she is an historian. So if you follow her blog or if you buy one of her books, as well as some lovely patterns, you get a little bit of a history lesson. So this book is about yokes, and as well as a gorgeous selection of patterns, again, these are all on Ravelry if you want to have a closer look. She goes into the history of the design and of the garment itself. So she talks in this book about Bohus yokes, the Lopiasa yokes from Iceland, the symbolism in them, the history of them, and her books are beautiful. She has a friend that does some gorgeous pencil illustrations. Her partner takes the photographs, and you can really, even if you never knit anything from these books, you should buy them and read them, because they're just absolutely fascinating, and the photography again is gorgeous. So I decided to knit a cardigan called Epistrophe. I can't quite, there you are, can you see it? So it's a DK weight cardigan with a colourwork yoke, quite simple, and I'm trying to show you, oh, that might come out a bit better. There's the pencil illustration of it, and I've chosen to knit it in some deep stash yarn. And I keep my yarn in big space bags, the ones that you can attach the hoover to and suck all the air out. And those are sorted by weight. So I've got a big bag of fingering and 4-ply, big bag of DK, and they live in a chest, an IKEA chest, upstairs on my landing. And so the oldest stash is literally at the bottom of these bags. So some of them are, these bags are like 1.5 meters, so you're really rummaging around. And donkeys years ago, I bought quite a lot of Sirdar Balmoral DK. Now I think unfortunately this has since been discontinued, and you can see I got it for the bargain price of £2.27 a ball. Now these are 50-gram balls, and they are 72% wool, 25% alpaca and 3% silk. And it's looking a little purple on there, but it's actually a nice inky blue. If you imagine the same colour as fountain pen ink. So I'm going to do the body in blue and then the yoke design in the cream. And at the beginning it will be a nice brainless knit, because it's just stocking stitch all the way up. You knit it in one piece up to the armpits, you knit the sleeves and attach them, and then you introduce the cream for the colourwork yoke. So I need to do some tension squares. I'll just do the tension square for the body in the blue for now, because it will be a while till I get to the colourwork yoke, and the tension can vary. So when I get to the yoke point, then I'll do a tension square with the cream, and hopefully I will have a nice new cardigan. So yeah, do go and have a look at katedavisdesigns.com, or find her patterns on Ravelry. She does mittens and a couple of lovely free patterns, cardigans, capes, an old-fashioned muffler, like a cylindrical, poke your hands in it, Jane Austen muffler. She also has her own range of DK yarn called Buchel, that's been out. I haven't bought any because I'm cold sheeping. It's getting progressively harder not to buy any yarn, but yes, so katedavisdesigns.com. From the Yokes book, and I'm going to knit the Epistrophe cardigan. There is also a hat as well, and again you can find all of these on Ravelry as well. So hopefully next time you see me I'll have some of that as well. Now I wanted to introduce a new section this time round. As well as watching podcasts on YouTube, I also like audio podcasts. So when I'm driving to work, or when I'm running on the running machines, which is really dull, or doing housework, I have Podcast Republic on my phone, and I do like a nice podcast. So I thought it might be interesting if I could just pass on a couple of things that I've heard recently, or things that I've seen. So my new section is going to be called Two is Company, because I like a bit of company when I'm going about my daily tasks. So first of all, I've recently discovered an audio podcast called the Shiny Bees podcast, and that is by a lady called Jo Millline, and it's basically an interview, a crafty knitterly interview podcast, with a particular reference or emphasis on crafty business. So she has some absolutely fantastic episodes. That's most of what I've been listening to this last 2 weeks. I particularly enjoyed episode 95, where she went to see Countess Ablaze. Countess Ablaze is an amazing indie dyer. She does the most vibrant, crazy colourways in interesting and unusual fibre blends. It's not all sock yarn. She's got some really fantastic products, so do go and have a look at Countess Ablaze. And she is autistic. So originally, when Jo from Shiny Bees got in touch with her to say, please could I come and interview you, and the Countess declined. It was something she was going to feel quite pressured and nervous about doing. But in the end, she changed her mind, and she said, well, I don't want to do an interview, but why don't you come down to the studio and we'll dye some yarn together, and you can just record what happens. So Countess Ablaze has a studio in Manchester. She's an interesting indie dyer because she does have a bricks and mortar premises where she dyes her yarn, and it has a shop front, so she's open a few days a week, and she hosts knit nights and trunk shows, which is quite rare for an indie dyer, so she's an interesting one. So Shiny Bees went down and just recorded what was happening, and it was fascinating to just learn a little bit more about the process and how she works, and the sound effects, you know, the clang of a spoon on a Pyrex jug and the squish of the soggy yarn as they were dyeing. It was fascinating. So go and have a listen to that one. She also had interviews. Episode 92, she spoke to Estelle Faust of Midwinter Yarns. Midwinter Yarns are a relatively new company, and they specialise in Scandinavian yarn imports. I know she goes to a lot of the fairs. I saw her at Wonderwool when I went up with Al About Yarn. So that was fascinating to hear her take on Scandinavian knitting techniques and traditions, and how she decided to bring that to the UK and supply those sorts of yarns to us was fascinating. And episode 90, Helen Stewart of Curious Handmade, she's quite a big name. I haven't listened to that one yet, but they're definitely worth a listen. One of my other favourites, another audio podcast, is Knit British. And that's a podcast which focuses specifically on British yarn and dyers and woolly industry. And that is produced by Louise Scollay. She has a beautiful voice. She's got a good, soft but strong Scottish accent, so she's a real pleasure to have in your headphones. And she does yarn reviews and interviews, and she talks about trips that she goes on to yarn festivals, and she'll go to interview other people around the UK as well, so that's another nice one to listen to. And then the last one I'd recommend to you is totally new to me, although she's been around for a while, another audio podcast called Craft-ish, by a lady called Vicky Howell. This is not a yarn and knitting specific one. Like the title said, it's craft-ish. So there's knitting content in there. There's also conversations with musicians, artists, photographers, restaurateurs, all sorts of fascinating things. So if you fancy broadening your subject areas just a little bit, I only listened to one. I listened to this yesterday while I was unpicking that skirt to rescue the fabric for my new top. I listened to episode 12 where she had an interview with Erica Knight, who is one of the UK's premier national treasure knitting designers. And she's had a long career spanning, the 70s, particularly strong in the 80s, and is recently at the forefront of championing British yarn and British designers as well. So that was a really interesting listen. Found out about her past in the clubbing world of the 80s and where she sees herself going with her designing and knitting now. So yes, those are my top 3 picks: Shiny Bees, Knit British and Craft-ish. So if you have some time, go and have a listen, download something to help you get through the washing up, or just pair it with a beverage of your choice when you sit down for your knitting. That's all I have for this episode. Thank you for sticking with me. Hopefully I didn't blather on too long. And as I said, there'll be notes in the drop-down bar at the bottom, so if you want any more information or if you've forgotten any of the details I mentioned, do have a look there. If you enjoyed the podcast, please give me a thumbs up and click subscribe if you can. There's a button in the top right-hand corner. Click subscribe. I would love to get to 100 subscribers, and if I make that number, I will have a little giveaway. So do me a favour, subscribe, and maybe you can win something nice. Thanks for spending your time with me, and I will be back in 2 weeks' time, and hopefully everyone will have stopped throwing up. All right then, well, happy knitting, happy sewing, happy crafting, and look after yourselves. Cheerio.